Rob, so to kind of summarize my thoughts on this platform switching and tie bases, this is an old case, and you can see where the zirconia goes pretty deep, and this is a 1mm collar. You got a little bit of bone lip right here, and doesn't seem like you got a lot of bone on this lip. So the whole concept of platform switching is, you know, bring the margins of the abutment out of the way so we can get bone growth, but then we flower or develop these pretty quickly out of the soft tissue, almost like putting pressure back on the bone and you know, not helping the bone heal properly, right? So if you have a platform, you know, as opposed, this is a platform switch implant, but it doesn't really matter because it's not placed that deep, and it's a different collar height. I know there's, you know, differences between the internal conical connection, right? But if you have an implant that's, and again, this is not placed that deep, but it is subcrestal. But if you have a implant placed really, really, really deep, right? I prefer to move the titanium further up before I develop the zirconia crown. All right, you're still getting a biological seal here, but I wouldn't want to place a 1.5mm collar down here and then have, because the collar is going to be further out than this trumpet shape right here, right? So you're going to have this collar down here, and you're not going to be able to get all this bone profiled up here. This is the day of delivery, but still, you know, in 5-10 years, I wanted to develop the soft tissue out here and then have the biological seal of the zirconia around the abutment further up, right? So like for her case, we did all this work to try to develop her soft tissue profile before we put in her custom abutment, and I don't want to put pressure on the bone and have it recede back, right? And this is the point that I'm getting. This was an extraction immediate placement, and I placed this tie base right next to the bone. You can see it right here. Well, that was not smart of me. I should have had the platform further out here, because now I'm putting pressure and I'm impinging on the bone. And it's really nice as we did like this custom healing abutment and did all this kind of stuff the day of delivery. Like this was the day that I put it in, but look at the day of delivery of the scans. I've lost bone. I still have a little bit of bone around my collar, my implant, but I don't have it like it was here, right? So I would have preferred to have the platform higher up to give it a little bit, put less pressure around the platform, right? And again, it depends on the depth of the implant. If the implants aren't placed that deep, this can be a 3mm collar, but this should not be a 3mm collar. This shouldn't be a 1.5mm collar. It doesn't matter. This bone will be pushed away if this transition line is down here. So it has to develop further up, right? Another patient, see how tall this is before it develops? That's perfect, but this, to me, this is too short. This should be right at the bone profile. So typically what I'm seeing is that the best results is the titanium gets out of the bone, and then the zirconia creates the biological seal around the soft tissue, right? So deep implant, you got a lot of titanium, and then the biological seal around the zirconia. So I don't love seeing zirconia this long. This is what we used to do for these screw retain tie bases. I prefer now to have the titanium further up, right? So case in example, this is a 1.5, this is a 3mm. To me, this 3mm gets you out of the bone before we start creating our zirconia profile. And it's all about the trumpet shape. So this trumpet shape stops right here. Now I have pressure on my bone right here before I develop my zirconia. As opposed to here, we're continuing this curve higher up so that bone can grow up here, right? So I want to keep this pressure from this little S right here away from my bone as much as possible, right? And finally, this is a 3mm. I can't imagine putting a 1.5 and putting pressure on this bone right here. So to your case that we looked at, that we've been talking about, if you have the room, I would pull this as high as possible to allow the bone to grow around this implant. So I would go with a 3mm as opposed to a 1.5. I don't think your bone is that far down. I would imagine your bone would be around this profile here. I would even go with a 4 to be completely honest, because you're still creating a good seal with this zirconia around this area. Again, It's highly polished, so you'll get a zone of attached tissue with his mesomonal attachment. I think the soft tissue scallop profile that you've created is probably second to none. I don't see tissue looking this good, but I left this tie base just to kind of show you. At 3 millimeters, you're starting to see the tie base come through here, and that's at 3. So I'm betting at 4 you would just be just out of it, right? You'll get the whole circumference just out of this, and you can develop. I definitely would not go down to a 1.5. I mean, do what you want. It's your patient. I just worry about the pressure that's created whenever these platforms are placed so close to bone, because it's not allowing bone to grow of this above that platform. And in fact, it's going to push the bone away, and we'll have bone loss. So I'm good with high polished zirconia. I love zero bone loss concepts. I'm not sure that they talk about 1.5 millimeter as the standard for the cuff height, especially for subcrestal placement. But in my thoughts, in the cases that I'm looking at, you can get massive bone growth above these implants, but the zirconia to titanium interface should be at least at the crest of bone. All right, buddy. Hope you're well.